Welcome back to Key West Waterman, boys and girls. My name is Aaron Young. Welcome to my channel. Day 2 of the Corona quarantine, and I'm pretty bored already, so I'm gonna make another video breaking down my Bluewater gear. Like I said in one of the previous videos, I'm not sponsored by any of these companies. I have no interest in to sell you any of these gear or any of this gear. It's just what I've used over the years, what I like, and what I have found is the best for its price. So we're gonna cover float lines, floats, the guns I use, and rigging. But we'll start with float lines. I mentioned in the last video about my reef setup and the Neptonic systems. They make float lines. They make incredible float lines, that's what I'll say. This is one of the first float lines I ever bought. This is probably 9 years old. 75-foot Bluewater float line. You can see 9 years old, no rust. I've never changed any of these tuna clips, any of these connections. The reason I love Neptonics is because it's all quality. This will last forever if you take care of it. This is one of their new float lines they just came out with. This is actually a stretch float line. Pretty much the same float line, except it has about 150% of stretch in it. So I just bought this. I like using this with a bigger float. I like using this with a smaller hard float, and I'll explain why here in just a few minutes. So 75 feet, 100 feet, these are my go-to. Now, if I'm using this float line, I'm using one of these two floats. I like a tighter float line with a smaller float because it's gonna put the right amount of resistance on the fish without too much. These will go underwater pretty easily, opposed to something like this, which is gonna put a lot of resistance on the fish. So if I'm using a smaller float, these are both hard, solid. They will not, under extreme depths they would compress, but your average, Bluewater hunt, they're not going to. So 75-foot float line with this. I think this is a 7-liter Rob Allen. I've had this for years as well. And this is a budget option float. If you're uncomfortable with one, throw 2 on there. You get these at a marine hardware store. I think they're like 10 bucks, but they work. That's a great option. Now, this is one of my newer floats. I really like this mainly for travel because it's filled with air. You can compress it by hand or with a compressor. It folds down real tight, so it's great for travel. And I like this because if that big fish does swim by, you're ready and it can handle it. Big fish, I've had this, for example, I've had a 50-pound wahoo bury this for no joke about 10 minutes, and we almost didn't find it, but it did eventually come back up. This is able to stop a bigger fish. And not necessarily stop, but keep enough pressure without pulling the shot out. So if I'm using this guy, I like to use a longer float line and one that has a little bit of stretch in it. Like I said, this is the Neptonic stretch, 100 feet. It goes great with any of these bigger floats. Like I said, I pumped this up to about 20 PSI. I think it's rated for a little higher, but after a certain point, I don't think it makes too much of a difference. Biggest fish landed on this year was just shy of 60 pounds. So that's the other setup I use. And it all depends on what gun I'm shooting. Honestly, a lot of people are on the boat that borrow these setups, so I don't favor any. They all work. Like I said, more than one way to skin a cat. So let's get to the guns. Again, I am not sponsored by these companies. They just make guns that I like and that work. This is a Koa. I'm sure you're familiar with Koas. This is a company you probably have not heard of, or maybe a few of you have. This is Hot Rod Spear Guns. This was given to me as a gift. I got actually 3 Koas for the boat as rental guns because, one, they're the most user-friendly gun on the planet and they are deadly accurate. This is a Koa 130 Euro. Kind of your average size Bluewater gun, I'd say. I'll also have 2 64-inch fatbacks with 4 bands. This is set up with 3 bands. If you're in the market, this is one of my favorite guns along with the 64s. That's why I got those. These are for clients to use that come down and want to try Bluewater and they don't have their own setups. I mentioned in my reef video, I like a single wrap on my reef guns. All my Bluewater guns, I run a double wrap. I've seen people do triple. I don't know why you need triple. This is a 130 big body Koa, stretched out from the tip of the gun with the line extended. It's a 25-foot shot to the end of the shaft. If you're making shots more than 25 feet, you're either the luckiest person on the planet, or I don't know. There's no reason you should be making a shot that long. So that's the setup I run with this. I also mentioned I like Dyneema. There's mono on here. I don't mind mono as much Bluewater because you don't have to cut the line as much. You're not getting groupers rocked up and stuff. Bluewater, always, me personally, I use slip tips. Can you land wahoo and kingfish and mahi and stuff without them? Absolutely, 100%. The example I would use is, can you take a truck off-road with two-wheel drive? Yes. Are you going to have better luck with four-wheel drive? Absolutely. So slip tip is a go-to for me. This is, I think this is the Neptonics. I think there's a Mori on this one. Those are my two favorite slip tips on the planet. Neptonic makes a great one that's a little cheaper, pretty much identical to the Mori slip tip. Mori's just a little more pricey. Got some jets flying. Like I said, I shoot this gun more than I shoot my Kowas, mainly because I like a bigger gun. The Kowas I did not get for myself. I got these for clients. They're a little easier to load. This gun is really hard to load. This gun's about 74 inches. This thing is a beast. 4 bands. This actually has a 11/32 shaft that's tapered down, so the slip tip fits. Same setup, slip tip with Spectra. A lot of people like the cable. If the sharks are bad, I'll switch to cable, but I prefer Spectra. It doesn't tear the meat as much on wahoo. Typically Bluewater, that's what we're doing down here as wahoo. Both of these are rigged up to breakaway in different ways. I see a lot of guys, people clip float lines off the guns. I don't like that because the fish dragging a gun is a lot more resistance than a float line in a float. It's a lot more drag in the water. It's not as smooth. With the wahoo, it's the main thing we're targeting. Like I said, you want as little, I'd say, sudden resistance as possible. So that gun is a lot of drag in the water. So I like to do breakaways. All this is a muzzle bungee attached to the end of my mono, and it goes to my line release here. And you clip your float line here, not here. A lot of these are solid core in here, but I like to go just to here. This is also set up to break away, just in a little different fashion. This is another piece from Neptonics. They make everything. It's incredible. This is, I think they call it a float line adapter. Pretty much the same concept as this. It just has a snap swivel and a little tag here where that's what the end of my float line will go through. And then it's got a bungee that goes to my line release. So similar guns. This guy's a lot bigger. This has a little bit more range. Kowa makes guns this size. Like I said, this was just given to me, actually from a client as a tip. So I love it. We shoot straight. Kowas, you can't go wrong if you're in the market. But that's all I got as far as my Bluewater breakdowns. If you guys have any more specific questions, leave it in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them, or if I have to, I'll make another video about it. Stay tuned. We're going to do some 2019 wahoo highlights. I appreciate you guys watching. If you're not already subscribed, just hit the button. It keeps the YouTube machine running. I appreciate it.